The Nintendo DS might be one of the most important consoles in the history of video games. I think it kind of covers the whole ethos of Nintendo. Yeah, having two screens might be a bit unorthodox, but it leads to creating games that are just far more memorable than the competition. And the market certainly seemed to agree. The Nintendo DS was the highest selling Nintendo console for years, and the second highest selling console, period, just behind the PlayStation 2. It would eventually be dethroned from both titles by the Nintendo Switch, but it still held that title for like 20 years. Naturally, with a new handheld console out, that would mean a new generation of Pokémon would be coming out soon. Sort of. While the DS launched in November of 2004, it wouldn't be until September of 2006 that Pokémon Diamond and Pearl hit the scene. While this might just be the nostalgia talking, the transitionary period between Gen 3 and 4 did feel really special. Pokémon Diamond and Pearl were first announced in 2004, and seeing as they wouldn't come out for another 2 years, the Pokémon company used that time to build up the hype pretty well. We got multiple movies with the Gen 4 Pokémon in animation, like Munchlax in Destiny Deoxys, Lucario in Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, and even a Pikachu short that's now kind of a piece of lost media that features a couple other Gen 4 Pokémon like Chatot. It might exist somewhere, but I can only find about a 30-second clip. What's even more interesting is how much of that hype they put into the games. Last time I mentioned how Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness featured cameos from Munchlax and Bonsly, and this wasn't the only game. There are hidden cameos from Lucario and a few other Gen 4 Pokémon in Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue Rescue Team, and Munchlax was even a playable character in Pokémon Dash. Pokémon Ranger even included a special quest that let you get a Manaphy egg that could be transferred to Pokémon Diamond and Pearl when those games came out. There was just a lot of build up to the Gen 4 games. Pokémon Diamond and Pearl were great games, though if I'm being honest, I think Platinum saved a great generation from being a little bit of a dud. But that's not what we're here to talk about. A new generation of Pokémon game means a new generation of Pokémon Battle Simulator, which is why today we're covering Pokémon Battle Revolution for the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo DS and the innovations of Pokémon Diamond and Pearl aren't the only gaming innovations I need to talk about before we dive into Battle Revolution. Let's talk about the Nintendo Wii. This thing was a revolution. Literally. The codename for the Wii was the Revolution, which is probably where Battle Revolution got its name. It can't be overstated how much of a cultural icon the Wii was. While its sales numbers weren't DS good, it still remains in the top 10 most sold consoles of all time, and I'd argue it is way more well known amongst the non-gamer populace. The idea of motion controls was pretty, dare I say, revolutionary, and the announcement for this game was unlike anything I had ever seen up to this point. Battle Revolution was announced at a Nintendo marketing event in June of 2006, before Diamond and Pearl even came out, though Battle Revolution would hit store shelves in December of the same year. You'll have to forgive me a little bit on the quality. I tried hunting around the net, but it seems like people just don't really hold on to extremely high quality versions of announcement trailers, but you need to see what this has to offer. Punchy visuals, destructible environments, 2-scale Pokemon models? With all that, Battle Revolution is sure to shape up to be a great game. Between that and the last 4 games we've covered on this little mini-series, I have to admit that my hype is actually pretty high. With this being a Wii game, going into it for the first time, I hoped for some fun motion control mini-games, interesting challenges where I could try out new Gen 4 Pokemon, or, if I was really lucky, an awesome new inventive story mode. What I got is not really any of that. I'm not really gonna bury the lead anymore. I think Pokémon Battle Revolution is probably the worst of the 3D battle simulators. I'll discuss specifics as they come up, but it's just so lacking in any features that made the other games far more memorable. Since this mini-series started, I've mentioned multiple times that all the 3D battle simulators had to do was provide a method for the player to use their Pokemon in the best available graphics. What always impressed me about these games is that they were never just that. Stadium 1 and 2 had imaginative minigames and difficult challenges to really push you to your limits. Colosseum and XD introduced us to a brand new region and a story unlike anything that has come before. Battle Revolution? It's got this Pikachu plush and a bunch of highly impractical looking buildings that you don't even get to really explore. Alright, let's stop talking and actually get to the game. Battle Revolution starts with you on a plane headed to Poketopia, the location this game takes place in. Is it a region, a city, an artificial island of sorts? Who knows? Not Battle Revolution, that's for sure. We are then introduced to Anna, our battle challenge receptionist. Get used to her face, as she is our main liaison to the battle theme park and the various Colosseums and challenges that Battle Revolution has to offer. In lieu of an awesome storyline or a particularly difficult challenge run like the Gym Leader Castle, Battle Revolution has a series of Colosseums for us to battle in. I'll discuss what makes them unique, but first, we need to get our hands on some Pokémon. This somewhat instantly reveals one of the reasons that Battle Revolution suffers in my eyes. Pokémon Stadium 1 and 2 understood that not every player would be able to easily get their hands on every Pokémon, so they included a rental system, where you could still experience what every Pokémon looked like in battle, even if you were punished for using rental Pokémon by them not having very good movesets. Pokémon Colosseum and XD did not give you access to every Pokémon, because they had a story mode where you were supposed to capture your own Pokémon. Battle Revolution takes the worst option of both games by not giving you a great storyline and not giving you access to rental Pokémon. Or at least, very many rental Pokémon. Let's look at the first Colosseum in the game, Gateway Colosseum. Anna gave us an item called a Battle Pass, which you need to enter a Colosseum, and Gateway Colosseum only accepts these rental passes. Each Battle Pass has a team of 6 Pokémon that is assigned to it. The game gives us 2 that we can pick from right from the start. One has 3 Kanto starters and a few other decent Kanto Pokémon, like Dragonair and Rhyhorn, while the other has the Sinnoh starters and a few other decent Sinnoh Pokemon, like Gabite and Luxio. They also kinda screwed over the Sinnoh guy a little, because Kanto Girl got a fully evolved Pidgeot, but Sinnoh guy only got a Staravia. I went with the Sinnoh guy because I wanted to see the Gen 4 Pokemon in 3D, but you can play with the Kanto one at any time. And there are more rental passes available as you battle through Poketopia. It's not truly terrible, and I am glad they gave me something. It just definitely feels like a downgrade to Stadium's rental system. There are only 6 total rental passes, which means that out of 493 different species of Pokemon, a player with only access to Battle Revolution can access a total of 48 Pokemon, a little under 10%. One thing I found out after playing, but while researching for my script, is that you can theoretically alter these passes. After beating the main game, you get access to trade battles at Gateway Colosseum. After each battle, you have the option of switching one of your Pokemon with one of your opponents, similar to places like the Battle Factory at the Battle Frontier. Only unlike the Battle Factory, you keep the altered team afterwards. Theoretically, that would be really cool if it wasn't locked to what is technically the post-game. Therefore, in order to fight my way through this game without bludgeoning my own brains out, I'm gonna need some better Pokemon than the 48 potential options from rental passes. Luckily for me, this game has access to the copy feature. By using that ethereal magic called wireless communication, Battle Revolution can communicate with a copy of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. But unfortunately for Pokemon fans, only Diamond and Pearl. Don't bring your Platinum or Heart Gold here. The game will make a copy of every Pokemon on that copy of Diamond or Pearl, allowing you to mix and match your teams to your heart's content. Luckily, I have access to a good variety of Pokemon on my Diamond copy, so I can create a pretty decent team with a little bit of work. You'll want to make sure that all your Pokemon are on similar levels, because if you enter a Colosseum with a Pokemon that is higher level than the advertised maximum of that Colosseum, the opponent's Pokemon will all be raised to match your highest level. I went with a nice level 55 to save myself a little bit of grinding. My team is Blaziken, Roserade, Mamoswine, Magnezone, Yanmega, and Suicune. Now that I have established how you get the ability to battle, let's discuss what battles look like in Poketopia. I've already mentioned how Gateway Colosseum locks you into only using rental passes, and it isn't the only Colosseum with its own special tricks. There are 11 Colosseums in total, and each one has their own special conditions that ostensibly change up the gameplay a little. Some are pretty basic. Main Street Colosseum, the next option after Gateway, is a standard knockout battle, basically the same as any battle facility in any other Pokemon game. Some Colosseums have some things that I find really interesting, at least in theory. The Waterfall Colosseum has what are called team battles. Instead of fighting your opponent's whole team at once, you fight them in a series of one-on-one battles, and the ultimate winner is decided by being the best in 3 out of 5 of those battles. I really like this one because you choose your team order beforehand, so you have no clue if the Pokemon you picked will be the right candidate for what your opponent picked, and there's no switching out. There's also no sweeping teams with one powerful Pokemon. You have to be a bit more strategic in your plans than usual, and I think that's a really cool layer. There are also survival battles, which I felt had a lot of potential. Unlocked after you beat the game, this is a straight up gauntlet, where you have to survive as long as possible. Your Pokemon don't heal between rounds, and every 10 rounds you fight the Colosseum leader. You do get to spin a wheel for some potential healing between rounds, but even that can only get you so far. I got to round 86 before I was taken down, but I could honestly see myself going for the full 100 one day. Some of Battle Revolution's Colosseums add rules that don't really change anything. For example, Crystal Colosseum, my favorite one on a visual standpoint, has tournament battles, which would be theoretically really cool if you had 16 friends who wanted to battle in a big tournament bracket, but practically speaking, this is just a standard knockout battle challenge in a different form, and that's kind of disappointing. Then you have the Colosseums that I think actively make the experience worse. There are a couple, but the one that sort of highlights the pain for me is the Neon Colosseum's Fortune Battles. In a Fortune Battle, all 12 Pokemon that are brought to the fight, both yours and your opponent's, are put on a big old wheel and you have to pick a team at random. You can kind of aim your shots, but it isn't so precise that you can guarantee anything. If you can time your shots to get decent Pokemon, you still have to hope your opponent fails their shot so they don't get anything good. I highly recommend attempting this Colosseum with one of the rental teams, because that will stop your opponent from getting anything too good and minimize the impact of getting something terrible, which I think encapsulates why this particular game mode is so terrible. You have to actively make yourself worse at battling to give yourself the best possible chance of winning, which really ruins the fun. Now, there was one feature of Pokemon Battle Revolution that was actually legendary and game-changing. Unfortunately, I can't access it anymore. This game and Diamond and Pearl were the first Pokemon games that allowed people to communicate and battle over the internet from anywhere in the world. Even though I've been pointing out flaws that I have with Battle Revolution a lot so far, I do have to admit how much of a game changer that is. I know it doesn't seem like much nowadays, but there was a time before we could easily connect any device to the internet and connect to any person on the planet, and Battle Revolution changed that for the Pokemon franchise. Unfortunately, the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection shut down in May of 2014, meaning this feature that was a key selling point of the game just doesn't function anymore. One thing I will definitely give Battle Revolution some credit for is the environments and character design. Every Colosseum is gorgeous and make for worthy backdrops for your battles, even by modern standards. You've got all sorts of exciting battle locations, like rambunctious city streets, tranquil waterfalls, and an obligatory active volcano, and they all look great. While the game doesn't give you anything in terms of a coherent plot, the Colosseum Masters are also worthy of note for their designs alone. These are some incredibly expressive characters, the kind we wouldn't get in the main series until only the past handful of years, and they all have great costumes. I'm particularly fond of Marina's Kyogre-inspired athletic gear, Taylor's cute Pachirisu dress, and Kruger's absolute drip. What is additionally cool is that we, the player, can access these sorts of gear as well. Pokemon Battle Revolution was the first game that actually had trainer customization, and it's actually very well detailed. Not only can you customize hair color, eye color, and clothing, you can also pick between different body types, 3 for each gender, and even change the dialogue that your character says when you perform various actions, like changing Pokemon or winning a battle. I'm really impressed by the level of customization in this game, especially because it would be another 7 years until the mainline games would get any trainer customization. And I'd argue that it didn't even get as good as Battle Revolution until at least Pokemon Sword and Shield, a whopping 13 years later. One thing I have sort of neglected to talk about much, even in the past couple videos, is how the battles look in these games. Each entry in the series not only brings about new Pokemon, but they also steadily improve on the graphics, making each game feel like a real noticeable step up from what came before. I've actually encountered some people over the years talk about how great these games looked, and then, in the same breath, use them to bash the modern games for looking worse. Now, I don't want to wade too deep into that particular debate, but I do have some unfortunate news for people who make that particular argument. These games cheat a lot. For starters, the most obvious factor we have to take into account here is that all of these games, Battle Revolution included, only really have to focus on the battles and not anything else. Even the games that do have intricate storylines, Colosseum and XD, kind of skimped out in terms of the everything else. In all of these games, there are no routes or caves to explore, no new Pokemon to design, or even that many complex environments. Colosseum and XD's towns and maps were usually straight lines or simple mazes, which means you save a lot of development time, energy, and resources. You only really have to design the battle arenas themselves, the new characters, and plan out all of the challenges, all of which are important, but that's not all there is in a Pokemon game. The second factor is that these games cheat by just stealing what came before. From what I can tell, each generation does improve on the models from the last generation, but they do steal the animations time and time again. Take a look at the fainting animation from Graveler in Stadium, followed by Graveler in XD, then again in Battle Revolution. If you paid attention, you notice that they're all the same. And that's not the only Pokemon like that, it's true across the board with every Pokemon. I'm not even going to fault them for stealing their own animations. They were all pretty good the first time. The bigger point is that these games all cut corners. Despite these factors, the battles are still, overall, gorgeous. The models for all the new Pokemon they had to make look and move how you would expect them to, and are able to capture the character of each Pokemon very well. While the animations on the models are the same in most areas, Battle Revolution adds an animation. When a Pokemon uses a contact move, it will actually show that Pokemon moving towards the enemy to hit them, as opposed to what it has done in past games, where the Pokemon will perform an animation and then it hard cuts to the target getting hit. Adding on fresh particle effects and a solid Wii era UI, and you have a very pleasant graphical experience. Plus, they even stole Roger Parsons from his job as narrator of the anime to be the announcer for this game.
The battle begins! Slide by Sludge Bomb! Well, this is getting to be a familiar scene. Sunny skies, balmy breezes, and our heroes drifting towards some tropical adventure.
He does a really great job, but you can also tell where they spliced together the audio of him reading in a Pokemon name.
From the blue corner, Roserade, Magnezone. And from the red corner, Jigglypuff,
Pachirisu, such energy.
Overall, despite its faults, I still really enjoyed Battle Revolution. If you want to battle with your friends in the Gen 4 era of Pokemon, it definitely provides you with a lot of options, and the best visual experience you can have for that specific event. While I still don't think it is as good as the games that came before it, Battle Revolution was still a worthy addition to the lineup of 3D battle simulators. Unfortunately, this is where things would end. Generation 5 Pokemon Black and White hit store shelves in 2010, and they broke the chain of history. We never got a 3D battle simulator for Generation 5 games, and we never would again. In 2013, Pokemon stepped into the third dimension in Pokemon X and Y. In 2014, Pokemon series director Junichi Masuda explained that they simply weren't interested in revisiting the concept of the 3D battle simulators. He stated that it kind of goes back to the core philosophy of Pokemon as a brand. We really want to excite people and surprise them with new things they weren't expecting. Nowadays, the Pokemon are already in 3D, and I'm not sure that better graphics would be quite as impactful or impressive. So, in order to come back to the Stadium series, I think we need to have some kind of new invention to justify it. For the next 20 years, no new inventions that would justify the return of a 3D battle simulator ever appeared. Occasionally, random nods would appear, such as the return of Shadow Pokemon in Pokemon Go, but no new game ever came to be. Until Pokemon Day 2025, when Pokemon Champions was announced. Here was a game that promised a new era of competitive battling, online ranked modes and casual battling with friends, as well as the ability to use multiple battle gimmicks in the same battle. You can Mega Evolve, Terastallize, and theoretically even use a Z-move or Gigantamax. Complete with Pokemon Home compatibility so that your favorite buddies can join the fight. I'll admit that I'm a touch skeptical about it, as it was announced to also be a mobile title, but I'm still really excited for it. As of recording this, it still hasn't been given a release date, but I would be willing to guess that it is right around the corner, as this video is supposed to go up only 2 days before Pokemon Day 2026, and Pokemon's 30th birthday. No matter how it ultimately turns out, I'm glad the Pokemon Company has decided to reopen that book on the 3D battle simulator. Maybe we can get that sequel to Pokemon XD coming out next too. But I doubt it. Anyway, I really hope you liked this video and this little mini-series. As you can tell, I'm probably a little bit still sick right now, and I'm just getting over it. So I hope you all could still enjoy this video despite that factor. But now I can finally take a rest. This was the better part of a year of work, just trying to record all of the footage. So thank you so much for sticking with it. And if you watched this far, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video, which probably won't be Pokemon related, and I'll probably also be healthier. So until then, see you next time. Bye.